The regional prosecutor's office in Kharkiv, Ukraine released a video showing the moment a Shahed drone struck an administrative building in the city center on Tuesday. According to Associated Press, debris could be seen flying into the air after the impact. According to officials, 4 people were injured in the strike. Regional Governor Oleh Syniehubov said the drone targeted a busy central street. Obviously, the goal was to hit the maximum number of civilians, Syniehubov said. The attack damaged the roof and one of the floors of a 2-story administrative building. With the war grinding on since Russia's full-scale invasion of its neighbor more than 3.5 years ago, there has been no let-up in Russian strikes on civilian areas of Ukraine and its army's push on the roughly 1,000-kilometer front line. A peace settlement appears to be no closer despite months of U.S.-led peace efforts. U.S. President Donald Trump's ultimatums and deadlines for Putin to engage with proposals to stop the fighting have passed without obvious consequences.
Атака була в день, тобто атака була спрямована на те, щоб, напевно, уразити велику кількість цивільного населення, тому що це центральна частина міста, де перебуває велика кількість людей, перебуває через дорогу, фактично це ринок, він працює. На вулицях знаходилась велика кількість людей так само, ну, я скажу так, то просто дивом ніхто не постраждав.
One person was killed and 13 others, including children, were injured in a Russian strike on Zaporizhia on Tuesday. According to Associated Press, Regional Governor Ivan Fedorov reported that at least 10 strikes were launched on the city overnight, targeting civilian infrastructure. According to the State Emergency Service, a large-scale fire broke out at residential buildings. 78 rescuers and 17 pieces of equipment were deployed in the aftermath, Emergency Service reported.
Немає ніяких ознак.
ZWAR correspondents urge not to trust the Kremlin media, which initially provide deliberately false information about the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine. Thus, in the Pokrovsk area, there is no encirclement of the Ukrainian armed forces, just as there is no forward movement on the part of Putin's army. At the same time, in some sections of the front in the Pokrovsk area, the enemy is abandoning its positions under the attacks of the Ukrainian armed forces. Russian war correspondents write that the Ukrainian armed forces are doing well with their reserves. The enemy has suffered heavy losses in the area of Volchansk and Kupiansk. The Ukrainian armed forces are striking Putin's army with both artillery and drones. On average, the enemy advances 80 meters per week, but then retreats just as quickly. Operation Kupiansk Pipe has failed miserably. Ukrainian artillery has covered everyone who was in it or near it. The enemy also has heavy losses in the Sumy region. In the Yunakovka area, Putin's army is sitting in deep defense, and the daily losses of the Russian armed forces are up to 35 soldiers and officers. Information from propaganda media about the mass surrender of Ukrainian servicemen does not correspond to reality. Z channels also complained about China, which refused to allocate funding to Russia for the construction of a new gas pipeline. Let us recall that in the area of Kupiansk and Vovchansk, the artillery of the Ukrainian armed forces does not allow the enemy to penetrate into the cities with large forces. A Russian military blogger claimed that Putin's army has advanced to the northeastern outskirts of Kupiansk, as well as to the western and central parts of the city itself. Russian troops attacked in the area of Kupiansk itself, in the area of Mirovoy and Kondratovka, in the area of Figurovka, and in the direction of Petro-Ivanovka, in the area of Petropavlovka and Kondratovka, and in the area of Stepova-Novoselovka. On September the 14th, the 10th Army Corps of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported that Ukrainian troops were continuing counter-sabotage operations in the Kupiansk and its environs following recent attempts by the Russian armed forces to penetrate Kupiansk through an underground pipeline. The 10th Army Corps of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported that Ukrainian forces are conducting fire control over the exit of the pipeline that Russian troops used to advance, and 3 of the 4 pipelines in the Kupiansk area are damaged or flooded. This suggests that Russian forces will only be able to use one pipeline for such operations. On September the 12th, Ukrainian sources reported that Russian forces had attempted to advance behind Ukrainian positions in Kupiansk using a pipeline with an entrance near Liman Pervy and an exit near Radkivka, and that Ukrainian drone strikes had since made the pipeline impassable. Z publics also admit that the Russian armed forces are currently advancing only in the Donetsk and Zaporizhia directions. In the area of Vovchansk and Kupiansk, Putin's army has suffered very heavy losses due to artillery and drones of the Ukrainian armed forces. In these areas, the enemy advances up to 80 meters per week, but then often retreats under the blows of the Ukrainian armed forces.